All right, and welcome to our Tuesday talk. All right, just getting everything set up here on the technology. I'm Hannah Levin with Heartfelt Wellbeing, and today I'm going to share Intro to Ayurveda little mini class, because this is something that is foundational to understanding what we're doing in the community that I lead and what you might be interested in if you are dipping your toe into Ayurveda. Ayurveda is definitely gaining more and more popularity in the West. And it's pretty cool that it's a word and a way of living that more and more people are becoming familiar with. And from my perspective, I think it's the greatest investment of our time and energy right now. I know that's a very bold statement, but given the state of our planet, the condition of humanity, we're moving towards greater just rising levels of disease, and the way that Western medicine has kind of pigeonholed itself into only treating things with drugs and procedures, surgeries, we're really gaining a lot from pairing traditions like Ayurveda with Western medicine. And also many people are finding that they're having better results in seeking out treatment through paths like Ayurveda, where we're working with diet and lifestyle changes as the medicine. So it means taking responsibility for the ways that we're living, and we're living in a very toxic world. And so waking up to that and making new choices is really what this is all about. And so I prepared a little slideshow to use today in this sharing. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that up. If I have it here, where'd it go? Let me see here. Oh, come on. Where did it go? Here we go. 1 second, y'all. Okay. I think we should be good. Okay. I think you're seeing my screen. Technology is always an adventure here. So here's my introduction to Ayurveda, and I'm going to walk you through some basics here. Okay, I'm just checking on my phone that you're seeing what I'm seeing. Okay, so welcome to Introduction to Ayurveda. If you're not familiar with who I am, I'm Hannah Levin. I'm an Ayurveda practitioner. I'm also an ERYT, which stands for Experienced Registered Yoga Teacher. I've been teaching yoga for almost 20 years at this point. I'm also a YASEP, which means I'm a Yoga Alliance continuing education provider, and I also have a master's degree in teaching. So that's what all of those letters mean after my name. Basically, from these letters, you can gather that I have a passion for teaching and that I've invested a lot of my time and energy in learning yoga and Ayurveda. Okay, so that's what I'm here to share with you about, and specifically today about Ayurveda. So let's learn about Ayurveda. So Ayurveda originated in India over 5,000 years ago. And what I like to point out about this number of 5,000 years, it's pretty challenging for us to conceive of what that means, to have a healing tradition that has existed for over 5,000 years. And what I like to point out here is that things that don't work generally don't stick around. We see this a lot in the tech industry, where there's like a great idea or, a concept, but if it doesn't really work, if it doesn't serve enough people, it doesn't stick around. Now, Ayurveda has stuck around through being sent underground, through British rule in India, there's actually more people practicing Ayurveda enthusiastically in the West now than in the East. And it's experiencing a resurgence worldwide right now. And it's in comparison to Western medicine, which is only a couple hundred years old. I hope that you can at least like gather a little bit of reverence, if not like awe, for the fact that a healing tradition that's been around for over 5,000 years must have something to it. So Ayurveda, the word tells us what it is. It's a Sanskrit word. Ayur means life. Veda means knowledge or wisdom. So Ayurveda means the knowledge of life or the wisdom of life. And I like to think of this kind of like the secret of life. Like we're all kind of like, how do we manage to be in bodies with these minds and spirits? And what is it that we need to understand? Like we're kind of in this journey, and all of us are on some level trying to understand why we're here, what we're doing, how to do it well, right? So I like to think of Ayurveda as the owner's manual that we never got for being the unique human that we each are. So if you buy a car or a toaster oven or anything, right, it comes with an owner's manual, and specifically more complex machinery, not that we're exactly machines, but when we get something like a car or a tractor or some, larger piece of equipment, there's some information in the owner's manual that's really helpful for us. And there's often, like in a car, a dashboard that has some information that it gives to us, like if our tire pressure is low or if something's happening in the engine, there'll be a check engine light or something that comes on. And we have those kinds of signs and signals going on all the time in our bodies, but we don't know how to read them. We don't know what's going on. And we often shush our bodies and we say, stop that body, that's inconvenient. But what actually is happening is our body is sending us a check engine light message of like, something's not quite right and we need to pay attention. So when we have the knowledge of Ayurveda, of understanding ourselves through this ancient wisdom, then those little check engine light notifications start being really meaningful to us, and we're able to self-correct and take action to heal ourselves along the way before something becomes so progressed, like we, from the analogy of the car, that our engine blows up or that we lose a tire or something like that. We don't need to get to that point because we've already gotten the indication we can take care of something early on. And this is the beauty of Ayurveda that is so distinctly different from our mainstream medicine system in the West, which is to wait until something's really wrong and then you go to the doctor. We have a sick care system, not a health care system. And Ayurveda really is a health care system, meaning we're tending to ourselves with our unique constitution. So let's learn a little bit about where that derives from. So Ayurveda is a 5-element system. And the 5 elements in Ayurveda are space, air, fire, water, and earth. So everything is made up of these 5 elements. And we can look at the elemental nature of a body type, of a mental pattern, of the season, of the life stage, of the weather, and even of food. And so this is really what everything comes back to in Ayurveda, is this 5-element system. Now, there's other 5-element systems that you might be familiar with too, like Chinese medicine or Tibetan medicine. And these sources are also very powerful, and they're understanding is a little bit different. So the elements are different. But one theory is that Ayurveda was kind of the mother medicine from India, and then got kind of translated and transmuted as it traveled through Asia into Chinese medicine and Tibetan medicine. So there's some similarities and also some big differences. One thing that I find really approachable about Ayurveda is how simple it is. We don't just have these 5 elements. We further simplify things into understanding things in terms of dosha. So I'll get to that in one moment. All of these elements are about aligning with nature. So all of the elements, space, air, fire, water, and earth, are part of nature, and we are part of nature as well. And we are either living rhythmically with nature, with the flow of the night and day, with the flow of the seasons, or we're living arrhythmically, out of rhythm, which then causes disease. It causes imbalance, and over time causes disease. Now, most of us in the West don't know anything about living in rhythm with nature. We tend to be like, oh, nature's something that we look at outside, or we go on a hike every once in a while. We're like, oh, this is nice. But we're not really tuning into what is the lesson from what's happening in nature, teaching me about how to live in this space and time that I'm in right now. So this is what's really, really powerful, is that our bodies are self-healing organisms when given the support that they need. And that support comes from living in alignment with nature, in rhythm with nature. It's that simple, but it's complex to us in the West because we don't have the information, the deeper knowing, the noticing skills to learn how to do that. And that's really what Ayurveda teaches us. So when we talk about Ayurveda, we're often talking in terms of dosha. And dosha is a word that can be translated as many different things. It can be translated as energy, can be translated as constitution. It can also be translated as fault, meaning the area where things can go out of balance, like a fault line in the earth. It's where things tend to shift. So when we look at dosha, we're looking at the makeup of each of us, and also the doshic information that's out in the world. We'll look at a doshic clock later. Each season is governed by a specific dosha. Dosha is the language of Ayurveda, basically. So there's 3 doshas, and each dosha is made up of 2 elements. So Vata is the first dosha, and it is made up of space and air. Pitta is made up of fire and water, and Kapha is made up of earth and water. So each of these has elemental energies, and we'll look at that in just a moment too. What I want to point out in terms of us understanding ourselves, you might have heard somebody say, oh, I'm a Pitta, or I'm a Kapha, or something like that. All of us have all 3 of these doshas in us, but just in differing amounts. And so nobody is exactly the same as anybody else. And so when we look at healing through Ayurveda, it's very much personalized, because we're all dealing with different amounts of true nature dosha and then imbalanced dosha. And the true nature dosha is called Prakriti. And then where we get out of balance with different elements is what's called Vikruti. And when we look at it from an elemental nature, we can see that our innate balance of these elements is what creates ease in our lives. And then when we get out of balance, which is any sort of diagnoses or disease, or something that doesn't feel quite right for you, that is when we're off the path of ease. So we're simply bringing ourselves back into elemental alignment. And when we think about health in that regard, it becomes much more simple and empowering, that we can make different choices in how we're living that really create different results. And if we don't like the results we've been getting, we can choose to get different results instead of waiting for somebody else to fix us. So Ayurveda, this is a definition of Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a sister science to yoga and has been practiced for over 5,000 years. So we mentioned that time span earlier. The sister science part is really interesting. So in ancient India, yoga and Ayurveda were woven together into how people lived. And there's some differing timelines into where these sister sciences met. But the idea really is that yoga originated as a spiritual path, meditation, and if you know the yamas and niyamas are like the way to live a spiritually well life. And even the asanas, the postures of yoga, are to train the body and the mind so that you can sit in meditation. In the West, it's gotten more focused on just the movement part of it. And then Ayurveda was very much the householder path of how are you living? When are you getting up in the morning? What are you eating for your meals? When are you going to bed? What kind of exercise are you doing? What kind of herbs are you taking? And so woven together, this creates a full life of a spiritual path, of a householder path, and it's really supportive of vibrant vitality throughout life. So this form of medicine uses dietary and lifestyle changes as well as herbs to support and increase vitality. So this is interesting to know. So this system is really about supporting and increasing vitality. It's not just about healing when you're sick, okay? It's first and foremost a system that supports you to be well. Okay, so support and increase vitality, clear dis-ease from the body and mind. And I specifically hyphenated that word, dis-ease. So it's the opposite of ease. When we're out of rhythm with ease, we're in dis-ease. So Ayurvedic medicine can really help us clear dis-ease from the body and mind, and then promote graceful aging. And this is something too that is so empowering that I see over and over again. Many of the women that I work with in the Vitality Circle, which is my in-depth year-long program, are older than me. And it is my honor and pleasure to support them in rediscovering how vibrant they can feel in their 50s, 60s, 70s. And it makes me really excited about aging. Meanwhile, I live in a culture that really disdains aging. All of us are trying to stay young, right? And like we want to stay youthful in our energy and our skills with our sensory organs, but we also want to honor the wisdom and grace that comes with aging. And so this attitude of aging can be graceful and enjoyable, not that aging means simply being in pain and losing our abilities. So we're going to look at this chart here that's an overview of dosha. And this just gives you kind of a snapshot of each dosha. Now, remember, all of us are a combination of all three. So don't be trying to just stick yourself into one category. And we can also look at dosha from the standpoint of season, food, life stage. Okay, so we're going to look at these in the order of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And so we'll look first at the elements, which we already went over. So for Vata, that's ether and air, or space and air. And for understanding that space is the principle of expansion. It's like the ever expanding energy. And then air is directional movement. So this is very light, and the gunas, or general qualities. So guna is a Sanskrit word, it means quality. So the general qualities for Vata are cold, dry, light, mobile, subtle, and rough. So anything that has these qualities is Vata. Okay, so we can look at this in terms of food, so things that are cold, dry, light, mobile, subtle, and rough, at least some of those things, right? It doesn't have to fit all of those descriptors. might be things like raw vegetables, salad, might be things like popcorn, crackers, chips, things that are dry are and rough are going to be Vata aggravating. Okay. So if you feel pretty clear that you're Vata predominant in your body, you're not going to want to eat a lot of Vata aggravating foods. Okay. Because they're just going to make you more dry and cold in your body. So the body and physical characteristics of somebody who is Vata predominant in their body is that they have a thin build, bony and popping joints, dry skin and hair, thin skin, and scanty sweat. So physically, Vata body types are what our culture has for quite a while now, have idealized being thin and bony, basically. As more and more of our population moves towards obesity, this is our ideal. So we can be one dosha predominantly in our physical being, and then a different dosha predominantly in our mental world. And that's a possibility. You might be the same dosha, but it's just a possibility. So you can kind of play and mix and match here. So in the mind and personality of somebody who's Vata predominant in the mind, the healthy side of that can be that they are creative, inspired, active, spontaneous, and sensitive. And when out of balance, and I want to just say before I read this, that we live in a Vata deranged culture. So a lot of us feel these Vata imbalanced emotions a lot, even if we're not Vata predominant in our mind. It's just the soup we're swimming in. So the feeling anxious, flighty, scattered, disorganized, and fearful. Kind of the soup we're swimming in, but it might also be more of your natural tendency when you're out of balance, when you haven't brought in enough grounding for that air and ether energy. The season for Vata during the yearly cycle is fall and early winter. This is the dry and cold time of the year. So those gunas are playing out as dry, cold, light, mobile, subtle, and rough. And the life stage for Vata is the elder years. So for women, this is post-menopause. And it's when we're drying out a little bit more, becoming a little colder, lighter in our bodies. For a lot of women in the West, this is a time of their lives when they gain a lot of weight, but that's not the natural tendency of the body during this time of life. It's actually to lighten up and to connect more with spiritual aspirations during that Vata time of life. So let's look at Pitta. Pitta's elements are fire and water. The gunas or qualities are hot, sharp, oily, bright, and spreading. And if we look at the gunas from the perspective of food, some foods that fall into this category would be anything that's spicy. So things like salsa, jalapenos, wasabi, things like that. Also sharp tastes like sour, salty are also pitta. And things that are oily. Well, things that are really oily tend to be more kapha, but kind of naturally oily can be somewhat pitta. In body conditions, the oily shows up more in pitta skin and spreading conditions like rashes. So really anything related to heat ends up being pitta. We're not going to get so much into pathologies or imbalances today, but you can kind of brainstorm for yourself what those things might look like too. So the body and physical characteristics of somebody who is pitta predominant is that they tend to have a medium build. They show more muscle pretty easily. They tend to have freckles, their skin burns easily, and they have intense eyes. So pitta tends to be more of the athletic build and shows more muscle. And people that when they look at you, you feel like they're like looking straight through you, like, those intense eyes. Now, remember, you can be a mixture of things. Like I'm Vata Pitta, so I have freckly skin that burns easily, but I'm also thin and have bony and popping joints. Okay, so just notice that you can have these mixes of things. So the mind and personality for somebody who's Pitta predominant in the mind is that they are driven, confident, radiant, passionate, organized, and focused. And when out of balance, can tend towards being jealous, angry, competitive, and perfectionistic. So again, these fiery emotions, the fire can be a drive for lots of really great, wonderful things. It can also kind of blow up in your face. And Pitta is also very predominant in our culture. We reward achievement, aspirations, being driven, and burnout is very real, right? So a lot of times during Pitta stage of life, which is adulthood, so we could say that's like between 25 and 50, when we're building everything, our career, our identity separate from our family of origin, our home, our family, if we choose to partner and have children, like all of those pieces are like, you got to have vision and drive and like make it happen, right? Well, some of us let it happen, right? It's just like, oh, this is happening. But the more Pitta driven mindset folks are going to be more likely to have that burnout, to be like, I climbed the corporate ladder and then I just like hit rock bottom. So this is something that I see a lot in the women that I work with too, is this like hit a wall where the health crumbles, or, they just can't take all the pressure anymore, trying to be super women, be the mom, the super business person, the super community member, and, adrenal fatigue or, autoimmune stuff starts showing up. Our bodies attack ourselves because we're not giving them what they need. The season for Pitta is summer, so it's the hot time of the year. And remember that anytime we're in something, like we're doing things that are like eating a lot of spicy food, that's going to elevate Pitta. The season of summer is going to aggravate people that are Pitta predominant. The season of fall and early winter is going to aggravate people that are more Vata predominant. Okay. So when we're in the season of our predominant dosha, we're going to need to take better care of ourselves. It's like we need to really stay on it. So in the summertime, Pitta predominant people need to eat cooling foods, stay away from alcohol, caffeine, really focus on relaxing, chilling, not getting so caught up in the intensity of the heat. Vata needs to be warm and nourished and have good structure in their schedule and get good sleep. Okay, so these pieces really tie into how we're living. It might seem like kind of hypothetical, but it's very practical. Okay, let's look at Kapha. So Kapha is made up of earth and water. The gunas or qualities are slow, cool, cloudy, wet, heavy, static, and soft. And so if we look at this from the food perspective, this would be anything that's basically comfort food. So things like ice cream, cheesecake, breads, macaroni and cheese, mashed potatoes, meat, things like that are heavy. And these qualities can also show up in other ways. In stagnation a lot in the body. So if somebody is Kapha predominant, the way that they look physically is that they have a dense and thicker build. They have soft skin, they gain weight easily, and they sweat easily. And I want to add also here that they have very amazing stamina. These are people that can just go. And although they don't like to skip a meal, they can function quite well without food if they need to, whereas Vata or Pittas will get angry, Vatas will just crash and wither. They'll just fade away, melt on the floor. And so being kapha predominant doesn't mean that you're necessarily overweight, but it means that you won't ever really look like a vata body. You're just going to have a thicker build, which also means you're going to be healthier long term. There's a lot more sustenance and support there physically. The mind and personality of somebody who's kapha predominant in the mind is that they are gentle, loving, stable, loyal, and joyful, as I wrote here. And so that is the energy that we actually need more of in the world. This gentle, loving, like peaceful, like not needing to like take offense at things, or, it's just kind of like, it's all good. Everybody's good. When kapha is out of balance, it can become more of this sticky energy attached to ideas and things, or even people, sometimes lethargic, lazy, and dull. So keeping that balanced is really, really important. The season or life state, the season of kapha is late winter and spring. So this is the cool and wet time of the year. And the life stage is childhood. So it's where we're really building the foundation of what we're creating for the rest of our lives. And ideally, not everybody gets to experience this, but ideally childhood is a time of great stability, so that we can really feel supported in the elements of earth and water, that we can be grounded and flow with life. And unfortunately, a lot of us don't have that strong stability in the early years of life. And then that leads to imbalance too. So imbalance can come in through lots of different things. It can be, physical, emotional, and affect us in different ways. All right. So let's look too at the doshic clock. So we just looked at dosha in terms of understanding ourselves, and a little bit in terms of the general qualities of dosha. And I really encourage my students to look at the world through the lens of dosha, which can then kind of articulate lots of different things for us. So it can make us more compassionate towards each other. It can help us be more compassionate towards ourselves. It can help us instate things in our lives that we know are really helpful for us, even if other people around us that have different constitutions aren't doing the same things. So we can really hone in on our needs, our compassion, and what we can do to support ourselves and each other and the earth. I mean, it's all aligned because it's all taken with aligning with nature, right? So we're looking at what are the lessons that we can learn each day from the natural world, and then these general principles with Ayurveda. So we balance with the wisdom of opposites, basically. That's the trick. Okay, so it's so amazing what can shift when we start moving towards foods that are more nourishing for us, when we move towards lifestyle practices, and sometimes also incorporating herbal medicine. There's no need for medications. There's no need to have, surgeries. Sometimes there is. I mean, thank God for Western medicine. There's definite benefits to it, but it's not what is the only choice. Okay, so there's a place and time for everything. And one of the ways that you can start to incorporate Ayurveda is to live in alignment with the doshic clock. So this is really answering the question, how do we live in rhythm? So if we look at first at this outer ring with the months of the year, we can see the 3 seasons. So in the West, we understand our year in terms of 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. In Ayurveda, there's 3 seasons: Vata, Pitta, and Kapha season. So we went over that in the chart before. What we can see is kind of how those flow in a temperate climate. Now, if you live in an extreme climate like far away from the equator, it's not going to be so evenly spaced. And if you live closer to the equator, it's not going to be as distinctly differentiated. It's going to be more subtle. So we can see the flow through the yearly cycle. And then if we look at the daily cycles, if you imagine a clock face, and what I've numbered here is 10, 2, and 6, these are the times where the doshic energies shift throughout the day. So I'm going a little bit longer today. Stick with me here. So the doshic energies shift throughout the day, and this can really inform how we focus our energy, the activities that we do, and how we structure our days. Our bodies love structure. When we have structure that our cellular intelligence can come to trust, our physiology can relax into that. And there's a lot more ease with things like sleeping, eating, eliminating. Like we can get in this rhythm, and then we're not spending our time and energy kind of problem solving if those things aren't happening well, or trying to figure out when they're going to happen, which used to be my case. I would be like, I don't know when I'm going to eat. And then I just get very anxious, spun out, overwhelmed. It was not a good scene. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through this dosha clock very briefly, and point out a couple of things that you could start playing around with. So we're going to start with waking up. We want to wake up before the sunrise and Vata time. That sunrise time will change throughout the year, which means we sleep a little bit longer in the winter and a little bit less in the summer. That's in rhythm with nature, right? There's more daylight in the summertime, less daylight in the winter. We need more sleep in the winter. Hey, aligning with nature. So waking up before the sunrise. Then we come into kapha time in the morning. This is the best time to exercise before eating your first meal. And then we come around to pitta time, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is a great time to do focused work. We can use that pitta energy, but also have your largest meal of the day, because this is when your digestive fire is the strongest. It's following the solar energy. It's at its height. During this time, have your largest meal of the day. If you eat animal protein, if you're going to have dessert, all of those things, have it at this meal. And then we come around to Vata time in the afternoon, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. This is the best time for focused sitting, studying, like being more inwardly focused, writing, things like that. It's also by 6 p.m. we want to have our last food intake of the day and close our kitchens. No more food for the rest of the day. And this is the solar energy is dying down. We don't need as much intake because we're winding down for the day too. So we want to have a supper, something that's supplemental that will tie us over till the next day. 6 to 10 p.m. we come back into kapha time. And kapha time is really a time for winding down, but that can be done actively. So going for a walk, like unplugging from your computer or work, going for a walk, doing some housework, getting things tidied up and organized for the next day. And we want to go to sleep by the end of kapha time. So we want to use that earth and water energy to help us sink into sleep, because if we stay awake, we come back around to pitta time, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., and our cellular intelligence lights back up. And this is when we can catch a second wind and get hungry again and start new projects and be like, I'll just get everything done tonight. It'll be great. But what we end up doing is stealing energy from the next day. This is a pattern that has been shown by research to have been set up, that is the case for many people that have autoimmune diseases, is they're not going to sleep early enough. It's not so much an issue of how much sleep you get is important, but it's also very important when you are sleeping. So we want to go to sleep by 10 p.m., be asleep during that 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. time, because if we're asleep, it's when your cellular intelligence lights up again. while you're asleep and cleans house. So this is really when inflammation can be cleared. Cells that are not healthy cells from the body can be identified and thrown out. So we really, really need to be asleep during this time. And then we come around to 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning. So if we haven't if we haven't basically been in rhythm up to this point, we might wake up, we might feel anxious. There might be early morning bathroom breaks. Whether you can go back to sleep or not will depend on how calm your vata is. And so the anxiety, worry, early morning mind is a vata imbalance. And that can be very helped a lot by working with Ayurveda. And so we do want to, again, wake up before the sunrise. And we're back to that. And what we want to do before sunrise or at sunrise is to have some sort of connection to a bigger whole. So that might look like meditation or prayer for you. And that really sets up the energy for your day. When you can arise, let your energy build with the solar energy, and let your awareness open up to something greater than like the to-do list today or unloading the dishwasher that might feel like the most important thing when you first get up in the morning. So this is how we live in rhythm. I love this quote because I think it's so timely. I mean, it wasn't said very recently, but I think it fits our time so well. So Krishnamurti said, it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. So we in our Western culture are normalizing so many things that are so not helpful to our health, like staying up late because we have electricity, we can pretend like it's daylight outside, or because we have air conditioning, we can pretend it's, fall in our house, even though it's summer outside. We think that we can fool our biology, but what is happening in our culture is that we are a profoundly sick society. So we do things that are so against the rhythm of nature and against our path of ease and well-being because we're all well adjusted to it. We think that's the way it should be. And I can only say that learning Ayurveda and really tuning into the rhythms of nature has helped me and all the clients that I work with to really see the simplicity and the beauty and the ease with which we can all live and be healthy without needing drugs and not waiting until we get sick to attend to our well-being. So Ayurveda guides us to live in rhythm with ourselves, each other, and the planet. So notice what is happening within you and around you. And if you want to learn more from me, I encourage you to check out Heartfelt Yoga and Ayurveda on Facebook and YouTube for free offerings. There's lots of talks there. And then also you can visit my website, which is heartfeltwellbeing.com. So thank you so much for tuning in for this. I hope this is helpful for you. And what I want to just encourage you to do is to get curious about some little piece, if you're not already curious about some little piece of what I shared today and what you would like to start experimenting with in your life. Just try something. Try eating your largest meal at lunch, or try going to bed before 10 p.m. or waking up before the sunrise consistently, and notice how it changes your life. It's incredibly powerful, and diet and lifestyle medicine has been around for so many years, and it's really our ticket to healing and being healthy now and for the future to come. So I look forward to hearing from you if you're interested in connecting more with me. And otherwise, I hope this has been really helpful for you. Take care.